As most of you know, Dr. Dunham is a visiting professor at the George Washington Milken School of Public Health, and also serves, focusing on One Health, and also serves as the Senior Science Advisor to the Deputy Commissioner at US FDA's OFBM, right? Okay. Before that, she was the director for 8 years of CVM at the FDA. I've gotten into the habit of acronyms. I probably should start Center of Veterinary Medicine. And before that, she served as an assistant director at the AVMA Government Relations Division, which is where I first met her. And not only, I'm sure as many of you feel the same way, not only has she been a wonderful mentor and friend over the years, but her and her husband were probably the lead of the welcoming party when the fellows come to town, inviting everyone out to the house and to take a bike. You had a bike event that weekend, and just really making us feel like we had an immediate family. So thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to introduce you tonight.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Well, I couldn't be more happy to be here tonight and to be able to speak with you, especially as we're getting ready to wrap up the year and start a new year. And if I can coordinate working this, let me just see. I'm going to need Chris back again to help me. There we go. Okay, I think it's going to work. Yes. Okay, so with that, I get a chance to do the wrap-up for the year. It's a delight and an honor to be here to speak at the One Health Academy. And it is a real treat for me right now to have stepped away from FDA and to step back into academia, and to work with the students and the faculty is absolutely a dream come true. And I have been re-energized, if that's possible, even further by working with the students, because they have just been phenomenal. So I'm going to take you through a whirlwind tour today as a wrap-up. And so basically, One Health defined. Everybody understands we had the task force back in 2008, where One Health defined as the collaborative effort of multiple disciplines working locally, nationally, and globally to attain optimal health for people, animals, and our environment. There's 3 key groups that if you don't know, you need to meet, and certainly go online and check them out. And that's the One Health Initiative. And these links are live, so if they're available afterwards from the webinar, you should be able to tie in and take a look at them. But they are a fabulous, fabulous resource of information that I hope all of you will take advantage of, followed by the infamous umbrella of One Health, whereby we continue to add the various groups, and you can add more, but it's all about how do we work together? How do we help people see the One Health approach through a different set of lenses than they may not have used before? And once you explain it to people, they usually get it, and the light bulb goes off, and then they can take it and run with it. So it's up to you, as of tonight's presentation, to be the ambassadors to help people appreciate and understand One Health. The One Health Commission is a fabulous website as well, where they have been quintessential on really networking to assimilate a number of activities that have been ongoing, very specifically around the One Health Day, which I'll talk about. Their link is excellent, and they have set up and even provided links for even students to have a student page, because we're really reaching out for so many to be involved. And then over in Belgium, we have the One Health platform. This again tries to assimilate information, again sharing a lot of the research data that's being presented. And I had to just address that now that I'm back at GW, Lonnie Summerson happens to be from the Milken Institute, and she's one of the board members on the One Health platform out of Belgium. And I met with her, and again, networking is what it's all about. So, One Health Day took place. The inaugural was November 3rd, and events were booked in through the One Health Commission. And we had over 165 One Health Day events, which I think really deserves a big accolade to showcase how much and how far we have come, even on the international plane, with recognizing the importance of One Health. And the events that took place, you can go online and see them all, and it will absolutely blow your mind with the complexity and details of what took place. So, because I happen to be now at GW, I want to highlight with a lot of bravado, it's one thing to talk to students. It's another thing to sit back and watch them take something and build it up. And I thought maybe we'd get one event. They blew me out of the water. Laura Benner's here and Emma Sullivan are here. Can you both, you're right over there, take a bow, because what they did, along with Mallory, Efton, and Jeff Jacob, Jeff is a medical student, the other 3 are all master's students at Milken, they made 4 events, which were unbelievable. And through the infamous cell phone. They basically set the cell phone up on a selfie, and they proceeded to do the recordings. And they had the Virginia Maryland College of Veterinary Medicine and the University of Zimbabwe stream live to fellow students their entire presentations on those 4 days. It blew me out of the water. I added up the numbers that they gave me, and they had over 800 people. So that's people. Now figure out if they had a room like this, multiply the numbers. I couldn't have been more proud of all that they've accomplished. And they're continuing now to reach out and build a One Health Club. And Georgetown University similarly did another event. So we had the two major medical schools reaching out and doing this. So I am so proud of you, and I thank you so much for all you've done to really enhance One Health. And that's what it takes. Start this and people run with it. Okay, now for the presentation. So, Zika virus. Oh, should I use this? Just in case. Do I need the microphone today? Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
A little closer? How about that? Is that better? All right. That helps not having to yell. So, now we move into a little bit more formality. Zika virus, everybody now has tuned into it. But I love it because it helps you tell the story. And this is what my message is. We have to learn how to tell a story that engages people and makes it personal, and they understand what they can do or the implications of an issue surrounding them. So yes, there's many, many emerging infectious diseases, and Zika has to be added to this particular map. But it is the idea of telling a story. And when we talk about One Health, with Zika virus, this is when you can see how you bring together the groups. And if I lose the microphone, signal me to put it closer to my mouth. So, entomologists, hey, guess what? We're dealing with mosquitoes. Physicians, we're going to deal with health. Veterinarians, with animals. The virologists, the wildlife virologists, the environmental experts, universities, governments, public health organizations, World Health Organizations. We need them all, and we need to work together. Because what we need to do now is figure out a way to address what we're seeing that Zika virus has been transmitting. The fact that it caused microcephaly is what really brought everybody's attention to Zika virus and the implications. So you're going to need vaccines. That means we have to have research. We're going to need monitoring and diagnostics. You're going to have to come through FDA for approval. We have a mosquito. How do we deal with controlling them? Do we continue to use parasites? Do we continue to use agents against the mosquito, or would you consider, other than insecticides, we have the potential for engineering mosquitoes so you can suppress the population? Genetic engineering, are we ready to accept that? What's the public reaction to that? How do you improve surveillance? I put a cell phone over here because the one thing that's incredible is you can go around the world and people have cell phones. We need to add to those cell phones with apps that allow us to collect data and information in a very seamless way that can really add a resource that we never took advantage of before. And we also have to determine human reservoirs, and more importantly, we need to find ways that can bring people together because the governments have to be involved to take care of these infants. This is long term, this is serious, and it's very expensive. And the more that you can show why people need to work together under the umbrella of One Health and the diversity and the multidisciplinary approach that's needed, we're going to have a win. And it's catching on more and more, which I'm so pleased to see. But it's important that we learn how to reach across the aisle and work together, and most importantly, develop transparency and share data. So when you talk to people, you can give them additional examples of, in this case, mosquitoborne diseases that a lot of them will relate to. And I put a few up here, and I couldn't resist putting up specifically, mosquitoes transmit diarrhea edematous, looking at heartworm in dogs and cats. We also have malaria. We still haven't combated malaria yet. There's even a possibility through genetic engineering with CRISPR-Cas9 that you can actually change those mosquitoes' immunology to reject the parasite, Plasmodium parasite. Wow, who would have thought about doing that? And I have to highlight yellow fever. Dan will relate to this one big time. We have a vaccine available to treat yellow fever. One vaccination can protect you for your life. We've come a long way. People thought we had it under control. So now we have a situation where it's no longer being stockpiled, which means we don't have access to it. But guess what? Mother Nature's taking over, and it's starting to surface again. So here we are. Rather than being preventive, we're going to be reactive. And oh, by the way, how do you persuade a new company to say we need to make more of this particular vaccine so that we can protect people? This is the kind of scenario that only through education, which you can all be a part of, can we hopefully have people working together to solve these issues. Animals and sentinels. We have a lot of veterinarians in the room, which is why I have to put this one up. So we took a look at Flint, Michigan, and we had a water crisis with lead. People often forget our pets are the most incredible sentinels that you can have right beside you. This is a program here now where we can do some testing because they will show similar symptoms, and they can often show it sooner than you anticipate. Ergo, we can intervene and possibly then prevent even worse scenarios happening to our children. So animals for sentinels, we're a great team to be able to educate. But for lead poisoning, I don't know if you know, but in northern Nigeria, they had one of the most incredibly devastating and largest known outbreak of lead poisoning in history. So what happened over here was, in Zamfara, Nigeria, 2010, a number of ducks, particularly, happened to disappear. But no one thought it was very important. By May, we had hundreds of children becoming sick, vomiting, headaches, and seizures. Many died. At the time, they really weren't sure what was going on. So a public health team was sent in to investigate. Both CDC and the Federation from Nigeria, WHO, Doctors Without Borders, and they had an animal-human interface officer from CDC. The villagers had reported that half of all the children in their communities had died. And when they finally did some diagnostics, they found high levels of lead, both in the homes, in the water, and the soil. And of course, the children had literally succumbed to lead poisoning. But they missed the original clue, which was looking at animals in the environment around them. And the deaths could have alerted people if they were thinking to say, wow, this is unusual. Once again, how do we help educate people that within the environment, many times a sentinel is walking or is beside you. In this case, it was the ducks and fowl. Why did this happen? Well, believe it or not, the farmers were now finally being told that you happen to have a very important mineral in your soil. It's gold. And so here they are mining for gold, and what they would do with no protective equipment, they often brought these rocks back into their homes, and even the children would help chip away to get the gold out. Ergo, this lead was also in that material, so it became aerosolized, then went into the soil, the water, and these children were exposed. And so again, we had 355 cases, 163 deaths, and 111 were in children. The problem is, how do you address this now? Will Nigeria take over? Will they provide people with protective equipment in order to still access this particular gold? And it's a work in progress. So this again becomes one health of education and working together. Let's flip over to the marine environment. Tell a story. So once again, sentinels. Many of you might love going to the Caribbean and swimming and snorkeling and scuba diving. Well, you know what? A few years ago, Ray and I did go to the Caribbean, and we saw this beautiful, healthy coral reef. Absolutely gorgeous and astounding. This past March, we went to St. Lucia, and we saw the bottom picture. And I was absolutely mortified because now I appreciate what's going on with acidification of the waters because of increased CO2 that's destroying these reefs. And this is international. You're reading about it, you're hearing about it, and we saw it up front and personal, and it's horrifying. And we have got to be able to make people aware of this if we're going to change and make a difference. You show a beautiful, healthy green sea turtle. They're very familiar in many areas, certainly in Hawaii, and we've actually had a chance to swim with the green sea turtles. But guess what? Now I can show you a picture of what people are seeing more and more of, and that's this fibropapillomatous lesion surfacing on these turtles. Why? Again, because we're having a major, major disruption to the environment of the coastal habitat that's impacting them. And they're succumbing to now developing these particular fibropapillomatous lesions. But it's a papillomavirus. So then you say, with your story to educate, many of us have had warts. We've had this experience. And genital warts, we now happen to have a vaccine because you want to go further and say, how can I prevent cancer? How do you educate people about the potential for protecting animals and people through shared science? And in this case, can we please tell them we have to watch what we're doing to the environment? So there's a great report here, the U.S. Global Change Research Program, and they showed you examples of climate impacts on human health. And it's a really nice document. If you haven't had a chance, I would highly recommend you take a look at it. And hopefully someone can give it to our incoming president-elect. I think he should read this too. there's excellent examples here of what climate change is doing on human health. I haven't even put a slide up, but we talk about Lyme disease, we talk about dropping an issue of our honeybees dying because of colony collapse disorder, but you know what, a lot of it's happening because of all the changes that we're doing to the environment. We haven't had any shortage of recent megastorms. Think about what happened with Superstorm Sandy in 2012. Over here in 2015, we had Cyclone Pam, Category 5, which hit Bernadette. It was the strongest on record in the Pacific. 11 people died. And people say, why only 11? And in fact, if you take a look at it in this location, the way in which they were building their homes, they were very light structures, and in fact, they didn't have a problem with a tsunami. So when the wind came through and damaged everything, in fact, there were not a lot of buildings that were heavy construction that collapsed and killed people. Contrast that to what you see down here with 2013, the super typhoon Haiyan that hit the Philippines, and 6,000 people died. That's a major reaction. And then over here back home in 2013, we had again Category 5 tornado that was hitting Joplin, Missouri, and we had 161 people killed in that particular devastating storm. And over here on the bottom left, we had in 2012 the derecho that came through. It's a straight line storm. We were home at the time. I have never experienced one. I don't want to experience another one, but that little highlight there shows you the devastation of knocking out the power. It did a lot more than that. But again, these are storms that we have not really seen to the frequency and the power that they really have now as we follow through with what I really do believe is all the climate change issues. So welcome to climate change. You know, it's really great. Internationally, we did have the Paris Climate Conference. 195 countries adopted the global climate deal to try to limit the global warming to less than 2 degrees centigrade. And it was further ratified by 75 countries this past October. And then we had the meeting of the parties for the Montreal Protocol, and that was done in Rwanda. 197 countries agreed to reduce the hydrofluorocarbons, again, your greenhouse gases, trying to minimize this. So the pictures below are something that we've all heard about and talk about, but unless you've personally been impacted, the majority of people will look at it and read the news and pass on by. But when it hits you home and it's personal, that's quite different. People sit up and say, oh my God, what am I going to do? When it comes to the droughts, how do we then deal with feeding people? If you can't grow crops and feed people, that's pretty serious. But then you say, research has come a long way. We can use genetically modified plants that can actually be drought resistant. That's fantastic. But there's so many issues here that if we don't work together to minimize this climate elevation, we are not going to be able to recover. So the Paris Climate Agreement has said stay below 2 degrees centigrade. Well, that actually equates to 450 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere. We typically hit 2 degrees centigrade with 800 more gigatons of CO2, and the world emits about 40 gigatons of CO2 per year. So again, trying to make sure we stay below that level. Well, this map, and this was actually from a great presentation that Peter Lafuma from our faculty over at George Washington gave, courtesy of our students, organizing a fabulous presentation for him to talk about with climate change on the One Health Day celebration. If you look at the global carbon budget, it's fascinating to see right now how long it takes in years to change. So that 800 gigaton guard is that red line that goes straight across. If you continue right now with no change at 3%, look how fast we're going to elevate. That's only 15, 20 years away, and we're going to have a major problem, totally out of control. With the 40 gigaton per year, you can see the blue line in the middle. But if we can modify, and if we can prevent going above the 2 degrees, say we slow that down, now take a look at the green line. And you can take yourself out 30 years, and you're still right at the 800 gigaton guardrail that we have to really adhere to. We can only do that if everybody globally works together to address this. What people often don't realize, if you look back in the 1870s and compare it to 2015 on the atmosphere, this is an example of where we are with the CO2 concentrations and what we're showing, be it from the elements that we have from coal, what we have from oil, what we have from producing gas and cement. But then we also have some sinks that are very helpful. The sinks right now, if you take a look at the marine side, I've already shown you, we're not handling it. We are losing our reefs because they can't tolerate the amount of increased CO2. So even though they have been in the past a module to help control this extra bit, they're not able to do it anymore. And that's the scary part. This only goes to 2015 last year. Project it forward, and you can see why we have to be able to do another change of addressing the atmospheric release from so many of the production units that we have right now around the world. So that means taking a look at the various energy sources. Again, educating people about what this means. We have nuclear, and each one has a positive and a negative impact. Basically grew up in Ontario, and we've had Pickering power plant there since I was a little girl growing up. Never had a problem. But then Mother Nature turned around in Japan with Fukushima and brought in the most incredible tsunami that devastated it. So it's one thing to say we can have relaxation, it's clean, we don't have to worry, but you do have to worry about certain devastations such as earthquakes and what we mentioned together with some of the severe tsunamis based upon location. Hydropower plants, where are they located, and what place do we choose? Because sometimes you can devastate a lot of the environment based upon where you choose to put a hydropower plant. And only by working together and doing our homework can we say, yes, there's a green light to do this, or no, weigh the risks, maybe not here, let's look for a different location. We really do need to have everybody come to the table so people are informed when making decisions like this. And of course, the power plants from coal, we're trying so hard to have clean energy. When we do all of these changes, at the same time, we have to basically address and make sure we're looking after people for their jobs. So the clean sources, again, that are coming into play a bit more are solar power panels. The cost has certainly decreased dramatically since we first started, which is good. Wind turbines are now around the world. I can fly over various countries and see them in the water, on the land. Again, pluses and minuses, but this is a terrific opportunity to see everybody stepping up to say, how can we do this? And we have gas pipelines, pluses and minuses. Again, they're above ground. How do we deal with this? What's the cost factor? And what could be the devastation to nature if something goes wrong? But the bottom line here is we are really at a very important crossroad in how we shift our United States thinking, and then hopefully the rest of the world in thinking. And you've got to make it personal. If there's anything for the take-home lesson tonight, you need to tell a story, and you've got to make it personal so people will relate to it and understand it. And if you take a look at civil conflict, right now we've had Syria. Back it up a little bit and ask why. Because way back when, they really had a very, very, very severe drought, and they were not able to sustain themselves, to feed themselves. And then there was an oversight of saying, continue to try to take more water from underground sources that took it to the next level of an irreparable drought. And when you can't feed people, they're not going to stay in that location, they're going to move. And when they move, if you're not able to contain people and give them jobs and feed them, you're going to have conflict. And that's an example that can tie back in many areas. At the same time, we've talked about the devastation whenever Mother Nature acts up, and people do react, but we're seeing more of it. So how can we prepare for this? How can we help minimize that? And yes, disease transmission that we're talking about. With Zika virus, it's so interesting with the history of taking that back from Africa over to French Polynesia and over to Brazil and now here, southern Miami. This particular insect is able to transfer and move just like all of us. And that's what's so scary anymore now. We travel, the various microbes travel, insects travel, and animals travel. It's just a matter of time. So we have to have better surveillance programs if we're going to monitor what they potentially can bring to us. And then, of course, the heat. We've had major changes with heat, and we're going to see more of it, which means we're taxing everybody to say, can I increase the air conditioner? What does that do to the atmosphere? But we've also had some huge fatalities with people in high-rise apartments when they've lost their capability of controlling for the heat. So we really have to sit back and say, think smart and work together. And of course, air pollution. It's pretty sad when you want to go to a country and you're seeing everybody have face masks on because they can't breathe. Or you look at the skyline, you can't see what should be behind them, beautiful mountains, because you're caught with really severe pollution. We do have to clean up our environment, and we can only do it by working together. And the One Health umbrella highlights the implications and what gets impacted. So you go beyond just that one individual, but you also bring it back for them to relate to their health and how they can make a difference. And I think the food supply is so important. If we don't have food to feed the world and have it secure and safe, we're going to have a major issue. Now, all of that, I always want to finish on a good note. So here we have, this past year, the WHO put out a nice document called Preventing Disease Through Healthy Environments. And again, everybody wants to be in a healthy environment. We know the joy of it, the beauty of it, but we have to work hard to sustain it. The analysis in this report showed that 23% of global deaths, of which 26% were children under 5, were due to modifiable environmental factors. Can you reduce the air pollution? I talked about the lead poisoning example. Can you access safe water? Think of all the parasites you have in certain countries that are going to be in the water that impact people. Basic sanitation. You know, we're over here and we take it for granted. Travel to a country where that doesn't exist, and it's a mind-opening experience, and you really have to sit back and know your public health venue can bring so much to how do we help them make the changes to move forward. And certainly you want to have clean fuel. Okay, changing gears. Now we go to translational biology. And again, how do you advance One Health? Well, this one is near and dear to my heart. So last year, the Institute of Medicine held a workshop, and it was entitled The Role of Clinical Studies for Pets with Naturally Occurring Tumors in Translational Cancer Research. Finally, people are understanding we are all animals, but how can we learn from each other in ways that we haven't done before? When you're typically in the research environment, and many of us have done that, you are working with a system where you want to design the study, and you pick the system, and you do your analysis. So oftentimes mice and rodents are used, and you set up your experiment. But many times they're not always the best model when you want to bring it back truthfully for people. It may be a good start, but you also want to fill in some gaps in between. And what was happening now was we were realizing that a lot of us do have pets. And our pets are, in fact, being taken care of and living longer, and they're developing tumors just like you and I. What a fabulous model to be able to study from them and glean information from them. So the National Cancer Institute has set up a Comparative Oncology Trials Consortium to be able to really take a look at how can we network and build our infrastructure and resources to integrate data that can come from clinical trials for pets with naturally occurring tumors to help us potentially develop drugs or breakthrough therapies that we can then bring into and use for us to help treat people. So there's about 20 oncology trials consortium around the United States. And the typical slide that I show, and I can't resist not highlighting Dr. Rod Page, who I've met. He's at the Flint Animal Cancer Center in Colorado. He was quintessential in really trying to build and bring together this Institute of Medicine study. What was so great being at the meeting was watching board-certified medical oncologists talking for the first time ever to board-certified veterinary oncologists. And everybody said, wow, look at the similarity. Who would have thought? And they got engaged. And you say, what took you so long? So my other story is when you can bring people together, it's amazing what will happen. So be a facilitator, set up introductions, and bring people together and watch what will happen. It's fantastic. But this slide was again for the public and tell a story. In this case, people do know about osteosarcomas, and you want to talk to them about a bone tumor that people get. Guess what? Our dogs are going to get it too. Now fast forward, and we have genomics. It's absolutely incredible to find out that the osteosarcoma at the genomic level for people and for dogs is pretty well identical. Moreover, you can have what we call a transitional carcinoma of the bladder. Little Scotties happen to get this particular tumor 19 times more frequently than other breeds. When you now look at it at the molecular level, it's a BRAF mutation, identical to what people get with the same transitional cell carcinoma. Who would have thought? So once again, we love our pets, but their lives are very short. So you've got a narrow window. You can accrue a lot of data and hopefully bring that back over to advanced therapies that we're going to use for people. And just in case you didn't know, elephants rarely get cancer. And this particular study that went down took a look at it, and they have 20 copies of the TP53. This encodes for your protein P53. This is a real crucial tumor suppressor gene. Sorry to say, we only have one copy. Makes you wonder, as you look at this and study this, is that something we might want to look into further? Okay, so I want to take it further. So we had this wonderful meeting by the Institute of Medicine, but NCI took it to the next level, and I'm so delighted. They went ahead and they set up a program to get some additional supplements that specifically involve collaboration between the NCI designated cancer centers and veterinary medical colleges. So Toby Hecht and Amy LeBlanc provided this information for me to share with you, and I could not be happier to showcase the fact that they did put out the word. There were 17 applications received, 8 were funded. Here's a list of them all, and it's finally bringing together, in the first time I've ever seen something this big, medical colleges and veterinary medical colleges and PIs working together and gleaning information from animals to people and back and forth. When we're at the Institute of Medicine, there was a phrase that was mentioned, and it said, "The answer to cancer may be walking beside us." Moreover, in Colorado, the PBS program did a special with that title, and they're now waiting to go across the United States, and it will be released for all of us to watch on PBS probably sometime in March. They had a little trailer for it, but I was so thrilled to see this information catching on. And if anybody reads the New York Times and the Washington Post, especially this week, there's been a number of terrific articles that are highlighting what we're learning from our dogs that have cancer and the new therapies that are being used, immunotherapy being a big one, and this is part and parcel of what this group is looking at. They're now tying in to say what can be some of the data sets that we're getting, and they're looking at immunotherapy. And this one here for bladder cancer at Purdue, it's got a gene expression cluster that shows you, again, just like people, luminal and basal subgroups. Who would have thought? Melanoma, they're using an inhibitor for indolamine to dioxygenase. And again, they're reducing this. The graph shows you a smaller size of the melanoma tumor to help bring this information over to treat people. Fabulous. Okay, so switching gears again. So another story to tell. Okay, these pictures are really true. How many of us have a little Chubette at home? I'm just as guilty. Our little pussycat is a Chubette. But I got to do the lower picture and put her on her leash and get her walking. The fun part about this is, and you can say, so we all have to do a better job of maybe trimming down. So let's exercise and let's eat healthy. But it goes a little bit more than just that. What we're facing now is type 2 diabetes has absolutely become an international issue. It's a global health problem. It's quadrupled worldwide since 1980. And today there's about 422 million adults that are living with diabetes. And you say, why? What can we do about this? How do we understand how people are reacting to not only the diets, but even if they do exercise, do they benefit or not? Dr. Margaret Chan was here just this past October, and she was here at the National Academy of Medicine. She gave a great presentation, keynote address actually, and her whole focus was on the epidemic of obesity and type 2 diabetes. So worldwide, this is costing $673 billion just last year. And if these trends continue, you can see that by 2025, we could have a major problem with obesity, even worse than what it is right now. So you've got to get governments engaged, and you have to have food industries engaged. Because what's happening is we've become a society that wants everything fast, processed foods, stop by and pick up a hamburger and chips and leave, inexpensive, the stores are filled with junk food, and they taste really good. So until we can make them taste bitter and sour, we're going to keep drinking them and eating them, and we're just going to add to our health. But you know what? You can travel around the world and you can find these fast food places. You recognize them, the signs are up, and people are going there. So it's going to take a major effort to turn this one around. So here again, a 4-step accountability framework is, how do you assess? Let's take account. How do you communicate? Share the account. How do you do the enforcement? Hold the account. And then how do you do improvements by responding to this? And I say this because animals get type 2 diabetes and people get it. And until we can start working together and glean information, it's going to continue to be a problem. The fun thing is, yes, say go out and have fun with exercising and eat smart. The other part of that is it affordable to eat smart? And can people access easily fresh fruits and affordable meals? I had my eyes open when I went down to District 8 here in DC. I found out that there was like one grocery store for 77,000 people. And you say, how do people get around? Where do you go shopping? And where's the metro? Oh, the metro's over here, and Ward 8 is like this. Really? That's a real issue that we need to solve, not only in DC, but in so many areas. How do you then work through and understand the needs of a community and work through that together so that you can help people? And this is a good example. Antimicrobial resistance. It was so fabulous to have Laura Kahn here and really focus on this. I'm putting it up because, again, it's another way of telling a story and working together. Our president did pull up and say, we have to deal with this, and he gave us an executive order. I wish it was an executive order, I wish it was truthfully what it should have been, a bipartisan issue across the wall, across the board. But anyways, he came out with this, and what I was so thrilled to see was he used the word One Health. So we want to try to slow the emergence. We want to try to strengthen through One Health a surveillance program for combating resistance. We absolutely have to develop rapid diagnostics, identify the resistant bacteria, accelerate the research for developing potential, if not new antibiotics, but now therapeutics, maybe vaccines. We have knowledge of the microgenome. How do we learn to work with the pathogens to maybe avoid some of those problems they're creating for us? And most importantly, we have to involve international collaboration to do all of this because the issues are global. People travel, they're coming back with infections that they never thought they would see, that we as physicians over here didn't think we were going to see. And how do you then know what to treat them with? And all of a sudden you find a plasmid that's giving them resistance and they're not going to respond. And that's a pretty sad state. So all of us have to work together. WHO followed through with OIE and FAO on a global action plan on AMR. Again, 5 objectives: improve awareness and understanding through effective communication, strengthen the knowledge and evidence base through surveillance and research, reduce the incidence of infection through effective sanitation, hygiene, and infection prevention measures, and optimize the use of antimicrobial medicines in human and animal health, and develop an economic case to sustainably invest what we need in all the countries for, again, new medicines, new diagnostics, and vaccines and other interventions. So people are stepping up, and this by far is a perfect One Health example because we all have a role to play and we're all impacted by it. People, animals, and the environment. What's in the waters, what's in the soil. And the fact that we get many of our traditional antibiotics we actually got from plants and soil. So we really do need to work together on this one. And then the UN made it another high-level meeting, and they were here also in September, and I liked it again because they said, forget all the words, but it's good, support a multi-sectorial One Health approach. And they have listed all these partnerships that you and I know have to exist if we're going to be able to make a difference. And we need to step up and do this because it takes a long time to get a new product through and approved. These microbes don't wait. And when they're bringing in plasmids of resistant moieties, we are facing a really serious potential when I am being told, I'm so sorry, there's nothing I have to treat you or your family because of this infection. That's critical. And so we do have to address this and work together. At the same time, we need to be responsive. It's not going to be swinging back and forth with severe bans on either side. It's not going to be pointing fingers. It's learning from each other and moving into the new modalities that technology is allowing us today to really reveal how can we address these issues. So the one thing I have often talked about, and this town is perfect, how do you build a coalition? How do you bring people in a multidisciplinary approach together, recognizing their skills, what they bring to the table that you, in your own area, your own silo, would not have thought of. But you lower the silos, you bring people together on a table on an issue like this, and it's amazing how many approaches and ideas will surface that we haven't thought of individually. You need to do this, we need to do this, internationally we need to do this. And I think the more that we can bring people together, we will see that. I'm very happy this past year there have been a number of international meetings as well as many here that have said that. It's a One Health in their title looking at antimicrobial resistance. So it's starting, and I think the more that we can bring people together, we're going to resolve this and hopefully slow this down. Education, education, education. And again, telling a story so you're talking to your neighbors and they can understand it so that they can be better patients. When a doctor gives them a prescription and you feel good 3 days later, don't stop, finish it, and here's why you need to finish it. Again, how do we help with that communication? Okay, switching gears again. So again, part of this talk is what can you do to reach out? I would love to see us continue to spread the word to educators that there are these examples. There's 15 One Health case studies that the Association of American Veterinary Medical Colleges, along with the Association for Prevention, Teaching, and Research, and Healthy People Curriculum Task Force all got together and developed this One Health Interprofessional Education Initiative. These 15 case studies are just the surface. I hope we can see more being developed. Take initiative and develop your own. But it's great to get them. They're all online. They're all free. But it's showcasing what One Health is all about. And the more that we can take that into the curriculum, it's a big win because the more that we can touch our up-and-coming graduates who will be the ambassadors going forward, that's the win that we want. And then politically. It's true. I couldn't be happier that this past year we did have, with Senator Al Franken, the One Health Act of 2016 introduced. Why? Because right now the agencies are sitting in silos and have done for a long time. How do you lower those walls, even for grant agencies, to be able to allow groups to work together, apply for multiple grants, and share together? This particular One Health Act covered that and more, and it really focused on how do we get the agencies to develop that comprehensive strategy for a national One Health framework, working together, solving these challenging issues. We can do it far more efficaciously. We don't have the money to go around for silos in agencies anymore. We've got to work together and solve these issues and save money by doing so. And it's also an awful lot more fun to work together than staying by yourself. We also have then this particular grant on this act, and I hope it comes again now in 17. We'll create competitive grant programs, spur collaboration, and it did one more, and it tried to reach out to say, and how can we further bring along our international programs and work together? So we need that, because if we all work together, but then I bump up against a bureaucracy that stops me from reaching out across the aisle to you, it's going to make it really hard. So I think if we can do this, it'd be fantastic. Switching again, another example that you can glean benefits on both sides. Craniofacial reconstruction has come a long way as we look at regenerative technology, and it really does benefit people and animals. And so you can think about a dog that happens to have a malignancy in its jaw. You may have to do surgery and remove part of the jaw, and then do hysterectomy. Same thing on people. And we've come a long way. We used to do bone grafts and try to do some plating and some pinning. But then we had a chance to have some recombinant human bone morphogenetic proteins called rhBMPs that were used and approved by FDA for humans for inducing formation of bone and cartilage and used for a lot of spinal fusion. Veterinarians took advantage of this and said, how can we benefit from this? So the lower pictures show you, traditionally we used to do a little bit of the collagen and some bone grafts, but you can see you didn't get a really good analogy of bone filling in. With the collagen and the recombinant bone morphogenetic proteins, we get a really good recovery. And in fact, we haven't had the problems that some of our human counterparts have had with this particular thing causing more bone growth than it should do. This has been phenomenal, and the reconstruction has been terrific. So, small world. Dr. Ishiro Nishimori, a dentist and professor at UCLA, has a dog, typically goes to his veterinarians, has the teeth cleaned and everything else, and he was fascinated by all the dentistry that took place on the veterinary side. So he found out that UC Davis was hosting a meeting, November 2015, so he went on up to be a spectator. And he said they had presentations on feline dentistry, on canine dentistry, and equine dentistry. But he said, I was blown out of the water with just how far veterinary medicine has come on dentistry and what you're doing. It's just phenomenal. And the reason he called me was he had an opportunity to listen to a presentation that I was most fortunate to have a chance to give at the Library of Congress. And he said, do you think we could set up a workshop similar to what the Institute of Medicine had done? And I said, absolutely. So believe it or not, he called in April, he worked really hard, and he pulled together in November of this year the Craniomaxillofacial Disorders and Solutions in Man and Animals. And 3-day event, and again, similarly, veterinary, dental, we're talking to dentists on the human side, sharing information. It was a total success. I couldn't have been happier. And while I was there, I met with Dr. Maria Sotero Rivera, and she was at Penn Vet at the time, along with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And they highlighted this incredible scenario of specialized pet therapy and how it brings together children and what they're going through with some of their craniofacial problems. And they pull together what they call the Best Friends Bash. And it's just one example of how we can reach out to people to help them. And I'm going to try to see if I can do this. I might need some assistance, but if you'll bear with me, yeah, I'm going to need some assistance. Can you believe this? He taught me how to do this, and I've already forgotten. Okay. So now we're going to make this big. All right. So I get to sit back and let you be entertained for 2 minutes. And we hope the volume will work, and if it doesn't, now they're turning the volume off. Oh, no.
Maybe down on the
Should we stop it for a second?
Sorry, didn't test the audio.
Is that over?
It's not very good. Here we go.
No?
I am not sure on that one. I'm sorry.
Is anybody here a computer whiz? Oh, there you go. All right, can I bring this back?
Sentinels syndrome. I've had 5 surgeries. My first one was, but
All right, here we go.
that's a very interesting question, but I don't think I've ever met someone who's normal. I might have met someone who was average, but not someone that was normal. I mean, we're all different in so many ways. Height, hair color, education. It's not just our facial expression. It's a matter of the heart. It's about the person. It's about who you are. My name is Dan. I was born with a craniofacial condition called Sentinels syndrome. I've had 5 surgeries. My first one was when I was 7 months old. You might think that 5 surgeries sounds like a lot, but many kids with craniofacial problems undergo 20, 30, or even more surgeries before their 20th birthday. Growing up, I think all kids face cruel comments about their appearance, maybe those of us with facial differences especially. But now I'm 15, and as I look back at these things, I just go, oh well, I mean, I've grown as a person, and I'm just not going to let those little things slow me down. My medical condition doesn't define me. What can I say about shopping? They saved my life. My doctors are like my superheroes. I can't even summarize it, in a couple of sentences. The doctors and nurses are like family to me, and my life is so much better because of them. CHOP does a lot to help families through difficult times. There's an event that CHOP and the Penn Veterinary School do together. And it made me realize that some of my best friends are the ones who don't even look anything like me. Welcome to the Best Friends Bash. The Best Friends Bash is where therapy dogs and kids with various facial differences come together and have a big party. Kids get to interact with these amazing therapy dogs that have similar challenges. It gives everyone a chance to open up and realize you're not alone and just have a good time.
We see children coming in that seemingly are a little bit shy, a little bit retiring, a little bit timid at first. But when they see the dogs, they really just come out of their shell. And actually within moments, all that inhibition, all that melts away, and they're on the floor hugging these animals and playing with these animals. And that's one of the positive things too. It just brings them forward.
I think it's cool. It's like other kids, like different is good.
I would say 3 words that describe the Best Friends Bash is compassionate, joyful, and just plain fun for all of us.
The Best Friends Bash is a gathering of kids, dogs, families for both, along with surgeons and nurses from Penn Vet and from CHOP, with a common goal of raising awareness for these kids and their families, for people to realize that different is good.
I think learning to relate to dogs definitely strengthens children's self-confidence. It's also an opportunity for their parents to be here at a time that it's a fun event and get to be here as a family.
I think it's really important for our kids to know that they're not alone as children. It's great to see that they see other children with similar issues to their own. And it's kind of heartwarming that they get to hang out with these therapy dogs who have all had medical issues as well.
There's something going on between a child and a pet. That feeling of being touched as well as that feeling of receiving something back, it's definitely therapeutic for a child. And it's also therapeutic at the same time for the dog. Receiving that unconditional love and attention is an essential part of the healing process. The small animal hospital at Bernadette has been serving the Philadelphia area for over 100 years. Every day, we treat dogs, cats, and other animals for dental problems, head trauma, oral cancer, and in some cases for craniofacial differences, such as clefts of the lip and palate. All of the therapy dogs here at the Best Friends Bash were treated by doctors at Bernadette. And it's very gratifying to see these dogs bring so much happiness to the children.
I do think that the kids come away from an event like this very changed. It means the world to me to see Olivia's face light up. When we come to the events, I don't want to miss it for the world. It means everything and then some.
I feel that there is a special connection between children and animals because my son, he had a surgery and my son didn't want to go outside or anything like that after the surgery. And he met a dog named Lentil, and Lentil had a cleft palate. We did get him to go out, he met Lentil, and then all of a sudden, just being around the dog and the dog being cute and everything had him going out. I think it had to do with, hey, I'm just hanging out with the dog, and you feel a sense of security. It's kind of like having his friends. You don't have to worry. Maybe that's why there's a special connection, because when you're with the dog, it's an unconditional friendship and unconditional love.
My son Dan was born with the same condition that I have. What we have is genetic. My mother and grandmother were also affected. We are so grateful to the surgeons and nurses at CHOP. They transformed not only my son's appearance, but his outlook on life as well.
So one of the things that the Best Friends Bash does is brings together our patients that are just starting on their journey of reconstruction with patients who have completed. Some of them are in their late teens or even 20s. And I think that is also a way of helping those young families that there is a light at the end of this tunnel. We can see that these people have gone on to develop and be productive adolescents and young adults.
I'm Paige Linsky. I'm 21 years old. The therapy dogs make me feel happy because I see them still living the life as a human being. I had multiple surgeries too, so it makes me feel happy seeing them. I had 55 surgeries from CHOP. I think it's amazing. CHOP is the best hospital. The doctors are amazing. The nurses are so nice. I just love being here.
The Best Friends Bash is more than just a party. It's a place where children can have conversations that are often only possible with those who have similar life experiences. And maybe, for the first time, they won't feel so alone. It is my hope that each person that meets one of our children with a facial difference would know that they are so much more than their face or appearance. I would like to personally invite all of our families to join us for the next Best Friends Bash. We know you'll enjoy it. There's nothing quite like it.
These dogs inspire me. The one with the wheelchair, the legs, he can move around with the wheelchair. It just inspires me, these dogs. That they do so much like I have. I had 9 surgeries. So it's just in every way, everybody's perfect. It doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl. God made us all so different. It makes me feel like different's good in every way.
Thank you for watching that. You can just oh, right. Excellent. So again, the benefits of human-animal interactions, as it says in the center, no words are needed. And they really are so important, from the military to helping seniors to helping children, seeing eye dogs, therapy pets. You just saw a great display of what they can do for us. We want to keep them healthy. At the same time that we interact with them, we want to make sure we keep ourselves healthy. So the One Health opportunities that you can highlight to so many people are just touched upon here. And the stories that you can equate under a One Health umbrella, every single person can relate to something here and talk about it and share the information with friends and colleagues. I think Cheryl Stroud said this very well. All professions are needed to make One Health the default way of doing business at all levels of research, clinical practice, governments, and policy. And there's aspects of it that one can take, and it's really just working together. That's really what this is all about. And if you haven't seen this, the very bottom here, the little owl for reading, Cheryl Stroud and Bruce Kaplan and Janae Logan and Greg Gray just came out with the One Health Training, Research, and Outreach in North America just this November in infection ecology and epidemiology. Fabulous summary of all the things that are going on across the United States. I highly recommend you take a look at that. It's a great resource. And when people say, what are the grants, what are the publications, they've got a great summary for you. So getting close to wrapping up, it's all about you. You really can be the agent of change. And my infamous message is, like usual, first seek to understand, then you be the ones to reach out to other disciplines and bring that needed expertise to the table. And you make it a collaboration, and you really make it much more efficient. And I think when we do that, you're going to have innovative ideas come forth that you never would have thought of before. We do, as I've highlighted, need to engage the public, the policy and lawmakers, and this is local community, state, and federal levels, to embrace a One Health approach. All politics is local. It's what you can do back home. Having your neighbors appreciate and understand the issue. This is totally bipartisan, but it's only by talking and enlightening people will they get it. And I think the more that we do that, bring them forward. But to do that, simply tell the story that they can relate to. And if they gloss over, pull together a different story that you can share with them so they get it, and then you're going to have fun. Work with the granting agencies. We've got to continue to do this, as I've mentioned, and develop cross-disciplinary funding proposals. I'm delighted to see what NCI has done already, and it's happening in more and more locations. Can't say it enough. Get that story across to people. Make it personal. Reach across departments. Reach across centers. You know, when I went to George Washington University, I had to smile because I walked down floor and I met a professor, and I walked back upstairs and met another professor. And those two professors did not even know each other, yet they were doing very similar work, and they were traveling to the same country under a public health mission. It's amazing how we get into our routine every day and just focus, and we've got to step back and realize it's much better to meet people and realize what they can all bring to the table. And by doing that, work together, and you're going to solve things far more efficaciously and enjoy doing that. At the same time, encourage people to do their publications jointly. Figure out how we can, again, get some of these grants with a joint application will go a long way. And for those in universities, yes, we still have to work through a tenure and promotions process. A few schools are doing this, but until we can change that, it's so hard for faculty to come through on the line for promotion. They're going to be expected to still be the international recognized person. They're going to be the PI that's #1 on a paper. And yet when we say work together, that doesn't always mean you're going to be the first person to author that paper. And we have to understand what each one of us brings to that research that's going to be completed so that they can still have recognition and be promoted. And I think my bottom line is it just takes stepping outside and saying hello. Make an introduction. Facilitate people meeting, even through an e-introduction or on the phone. And I've highlighted a number of things that I've already had. Many of them were by phone, and all of a sudden you make it personal and you meet them. Start the conversation. And when you do that, it's going to make this an easy-to-accomplish, multidisciplinary One Health approach. So finally, Carl Sagan said, science is far from a perfect instrument of knowledge. It's just the best that we have. In this respect, you could say it's like a democracy. And I think his words do remind us that if it's a democracy, then it's going to change, it's going to develop, it's going to transform, but the direction it takes is always going to rest in our hands. And I think, shaped by our desire to contribute to a better world through a One Health approach, we're going to seek optimal health for people, animals, and our environment. So with that, I'd like to wish you all a very happy holiday, bringing you much happiness, good health, peace, love, and enduring friendships. And don't forget, One Health Day, November 3rd, 2014. Thank you so much for your attention tonight.
Embrace the topic and share and sit down and collaborate right here in this room. It was really a perfect presentation for this group. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You guys are the best. And you are, again, each one of you is doing so much under this wonderful approach for One Health. And the more that we can share what we're doing with each other, that's how we're going to reach out to more and more. And when you've got, some of these accomplishments you're doing, that's what we want to hear about and share so that we can build on that. I have nothing nicer when I can say that Dan Lucy has been working with Smithsonian Institute, and guess what? We're going to have a potential One Health exhibit. I mean, this is phenomenal. So people really perk up when they hear that. So, yeah, I'd love to hear any of the things that you're doing that we can share with each other. It'd be fantastic. Any questions or comments?
Oh, I know you guys.
I've kept them going. I'm actually all over time. I do apologize. But thanks for watching the video. I couldn't resist not showing that tonight.
I have a question if no one else does. I was going to wait my turn. But I'm currently serving as a One Health adjunct professor at Lincoln Memorial University College of Veterinary Medicine, and I bring the legal aspect to the table. But I wondered, specifically, you cited many examples of multidisciplinary professionals coming together on One Health. Do you have any highlights that you might want to talk about veterinarians or public health students that are currently working together, and some great examples of how you can help encourage that in the academic setting?
I've got two fabulous students here right now with Laura and Emma here. I think it's just that opportunity of having a chance to, even if you get invited to give a guest lecture, which is a good way to have an entourage in, to talk about it and to be able to incite their enthusiasm about this and let them run with it. But unless we get in and talk about it, they're not aware of it. And that's the one thing that I found, even at George Washington University, there's still a lot of faculty, and they look at you and they say, One Health? What's that? So we have a long way to go. But getting in and give a few lectures and getting the students engaged was the biggest step forward that I could have done. And then courtesy of celebrating One Health Day, the networking has grown from that. So the next time you bump into a student or a faculty member and you say One Health, you don't have this look as to what are you talking about. But we still have to do a lot more to reach out. So I think I would encourage as much as possible when you have an opportunity, through the academic side for giving lectures, is to reach out and put students and faculty in touch with some of these proposed links that I'm talking about. I was just talking to another member the other day, and again, what's One Health? So we are so close to it, it's a natural, but there's a lot that still don't. But when you do explain to them, they suddenly get it. When I had spoken to a few faculty members, just the surface, and was like, okay, now I get it. They're going to set up and do some more things for the next semester. So once you start this, they'll take it and run with it.
Do you have any examples within George Washington where there's that interdisciplinary courses or projects that they're working on actively now together?
I would say it's still starting. I think from the students and the lectures that we're giving, the momentum's there. The previous Dean Riegelman has also now set up to do a one-on-one on One Health. We're going to have a One Health module being introduced into the Master's of Health program. So this school is moving up and catching up with some other schools that are already ahead in doing that, but it's a step in the right direction. So baby steps forward. Yes, Emma, please.
So to speak to that, actually, I'm taking a class next semester on health innovations, and it's collaborative between all the graduate students in all different health sciences, and it's at the med school, and kind of exactly that's a collaborative.
Thank you very much. Good question.
It's actually a question and a response. So we're from Georgetown University, and we're doing a project funded by the State Department on One Health in Afghanistan and One Health in Pakistan. And in both projects, we have undergraduate and graduate students directly involved in the projects. So
that's really, really good. And the other thing we're trying to do, to pick up with what you just said, we are trying to see if we can get this One Health opportunity between Georgetown and George Washington University, again, with students really being the focus to set up and interact through workshops. How do we reach out and deal with community issues under a One Health approach?
Actually, both of these projects are village-based One Health projects, and are human health, animal health, and environmental health, and involve addressing socioeconomic issues as well. And speaking of which, my question has to do with what you see as ways that folks who are involved in One Health are addressing the socioeconomic political issues relating to One Health, such as the food deserts, and you mentioned Syria and the drought in Syria, and there's a little bit more than the drought.
There's a lot more, but it's something to make you realize people are going to react when they really aren't able to continue to feed themselves. And it's just, going back and realizing the source of some of these conflicts, and many times it is really, when they can't sustain themselves, they're going to move. And where are they going to move to? And what does that look like? And then, you know, are you having turmoil within a country if they're not able to support people? And yet you can come over here and say, do we have turmoil because we don't have people that have jobs? If people don't have a job, they can't take care of their families, and they're going to be frustrated. And what does that look like? And those are the scenarios of looking at all levels. And sometimes they are very key to environment. Other times they are certainly socioeconomic. And you're right. Even here, as I mentioned, if people can't access food, and we all know that, there's homeless people, there's people that don't have proper jobs, and they're not able to sustain the nutritional level that they need for them or their children. So it's right here at home. And you're right. How do we raise that awareness and work across the aisles to share that information and resolve it? Thanks. Anybody else? Yes.
I think one thing that is a challenge for One Health, especially at the agency level. I work for EPA, where our mission is to protect human health and the environment. And when I try to promote One Health, they say, we've been doing this since 1972. We have ecological risk assessment, we have human risk assessment, and we have very interdisciplinary projects. So what decision changes because you say you're One Health? And so I'm like, well, you know, it's a multi, you use all the in there, like, we've been doing that for years. So they keep saying, what is the process that says, okay, I've done the One Health, you know, and what advantage do I have to brand myself as One Health when we've been doing it? And so I'm like, is there a, you know, and they keep saying, what framework do you say, or what metric do you say that you have a One Health approach? And that's where I think One Health is a challenge because, you know, okay, you did animals. I mean, these case studies I'm really interested in looking at because we have lots of projects in EPA, and I keep saying we need to identify how they are One Health, but what's the metric to say you're a One Health agency?
And I think that's a good question, and one that I think each one of us would probably have a commentary to respond to that. But it is really identifying an interdisciplinary approach. So you're not going out in a silo to say, I've addressed the animal health issue on this particular problem with Lyme disease. Then I stopped and I went over here and I only talked to physicians and I dealt with Lyme disease in the physicians. Then I went over here with EPA and I specifically looked at the ticks in the environment. That's not One Health. One Health is together you're working this through hand in hand. And when you can give those examples and showcase how you've done that. And again, it's a level. It's not one size fits all, and you might have a little tiny bit, you may have a major effort. I think everything has to be looked at in that kind of an approach, but you're able to recognize that you are working together on this and you're not in your silos. So as they've got that example, it's true, they may be the best example of all through EPA to showcase to others how we work together, how we've set this up, how you published, how you showed what each member of the team did. That's beautiful. If we could get highlights and information like that, I don't want people to reinvent the wheel. I want them to build on what other people are doing, what's already been a showcase example, and then nurture it for what you need. And if you look at an issue, we may have a little bit, it may be huge. That's what we have to decide. So it's going to vary case to case. And I welcome anybody else sounding that out to give a response or review, because that's a great question. It's something we're struggling with.
Well, what's the framework that you say you've met it? And that's where I'm struggling.
And I think the framework would be, I'd welcome anybody else that wants to respond to that. Dan, you have a comment you might want to share on that view?
I like your concept of the interactive, reiterative, interactive nature between the three different parts of the One Health thing. I would argue that EPA's more a natural for One Health, as they've said for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than many of the other than infectious disease physicians in the hospital in America, for example, or even the Infectious Disease Society in America.
I think it's low-hanging fruit for EPA. And
it is.
Look, we need to do this.
Yeah. One example that I think illustrates this is this canine immunotherapy. And there's a real situation where our national cancer centers are working with the veterinary colleges in close association, and they have actual projects that are very focused on tumor T-cell infiltration. They're trying to get a score for how well immunotherapy works, and they find that they can't do this in humans because they're not a very good model actually. But the availability of enough patients, canine patients, actually supports this, and they're actually working together, the pathologists, as Bernadette said. and the molecular biologists and the oncologists are working together. And it's beneficial for both the canine because, whatever discoveries come forth can be used for both the animal and for the canine and for the human animal.
I think, again, as we said, just to be able to have them see that they're doing it, you're show modeling this to other people. You can say, yes, we have shown how we're working together. You just click the box. I mean, you've done that already. So the metrics are really not that difficult, but to be able to highlight, as I said, with what you've done in publications could be a great way to showcase. You've got different disciplines all working together to solve this issue and what they each bring to the table.
So I think what you're asking now is about, like, yes, well, what at the agency level do I have to get my leaders to say we're taking a One Health approach?
That's a challenge.
And wherein lies the advantage to them adopting that new terminology, which might be something they might not be so eager to do after 1972 when they started. And so we found that in Florida, that we were very easily able to get both our state environmental regulatory officials and the feds that were involved to really understand and embrace a One Health approach to solving any problem if we talked about a radiological disaster following a power plant problem. Because we're animals serving as persistent reservoirs for continual contamination. Well, they didn't know that, okay? EPA didn't have any idea. DEP didn't know. Well, guess who would know? Okay, well, sorry, save the world, save the veterinarian, right? Like, you need a veterinarian. And so, like, but that was something that all of a sudden, at least at the state, at the local level for those agents that were engaged locally there for the federal agencies, all of a sudden, because it's just a slight shift in the nuance of the approach to the problem, right? It's not like some massive new policy or anything. It's just a slight shift. But if you apply that nuance to your approach to every problem going forward, after you've seen it, you can't help but do that. That's the difference, right? And so, like, you can't tell it to them. You can't, like, they just have to somehow see it in a problem. But that was a really incredible moment for our environmental and regulatory people to see One Health. Oh, that's what you guys are screaming about. Yes, yes. Welcome to the table. Yes.
Thank you. It's just perfect. There you go. Yes, Taylor.
So I would add to that one more thing and then also put in a shameless plug. So the one more thing is something that you already said. Obama used it. We're actually starting to get One Health into the mouths of our leaders, which is something that's taken many, many years and a lot of hard work by a lot of the people in this room. But now our leaders are buying into it. Tom Frieden uses it all the time. And so now that it's starting to become part of the lexicon, now it's filtering down. And so the shameless plug part is next week, the Global Health Security Agenda is having a panel that's available to the public at the Senate office building. And just to give you an idea of who's on the panel, USAID, CDC, Department of Defense, USDA APHIS, and Department of State are all coming together at the same table to talk about global health security. So, and there really is only one approach to global health security, and that's the One Health approach. So, I don't know if it helps you, makes you feel better. Like, I really think it's filtering in, and the fact that so many of us end up with seats at the table who keep screaming One Health, it's getting into the lexicon whether they want it to or not. And I think that's something that we're going to see in the next few years. It's just going to become a thing that everybody says. Works together. Thank you.
Do you have, because I've been trying to pull out all the documents, like the Blue Ribbon panel says you'll use a One Health approach, the Antimicrobial Resistance document. So I've been trying to pull out all those documents, but if you've already got those documents pulled out, because I'm trying to show it, One Health, One Health, One Health, it says we will do it, so we need to do it.
That's great. Thank you all so very much for your work.
With a flag that was flown over the Capitol. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. Please don't let the conversation end. It's just the beginning, so stay, come back. The second Thursday of every month. Glasses to the bar. Money over there. And go, please, make us have time. Go get another drink. Thank you. Thank you.
Two people are sitting over there. Oh my God. My daughter actually had a she is. Nice to meet you.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what I want. Oh, thanks so much. It's not a I do remember the class. This year. Yes, you need that one condition to I get
You can bargain there, you can bargain on
the medical law was always one of the unfortunately alongside with it.
Yeah, my choice on it.
Well, they see it all, and they all see it. You didn't see the humans, or somehow they knew each other and just rolled around. That's true. We've always had a real strong got me out there. And even convincing the leadership on that there is a benefit and incentive to the available healthcare folks. So we wrote a paper we've got to get together a lot more.
Oh, definitely.
So we were just trying to talk about, okay, each other. Yes, we've had that company actually calculate each other. They've gotten a polarizing response from us. And we're trying. Yeah. So last point, you know, go on.
Thank you so much. So let's think. I really appreciate it. Oh, look at that. I'm really bad on that.
Yeah, that was it.
There's one.
WPB. How was the Comedy 32 in Georgetown? He was a social. There's a lot. I've never won.
I'm good. Well, I'm fill in, and I love my house at home with the little ones. You said your prize? Oh, they're about.
Oh, you
Hey Neil, I feel like I sniffed you, man. I feel like I sniffed you.
I've got a whole career to go.
Listen, I'll catch you next time for a straight coffee for a I'll bring the non-street. For Christmas.
There's lovely people in the I can't wait for it. So then do you need like a center And they're like, oh, by the way, we think you may have this. Oh my God. And that's what we got. So which point? Maybe not. You're on. Otherwise, so I went to Cleveland. They opened it back up set. Visualization of the world. My brother's having it. He's like, you're falling apart. You know, talking about he was at UCLA, said he would come over about you know, preliminary, you know, it was completely normal. They said, oh, by the way, and so you have a normal variant, 5% variant, by custom, that, by the way, there's some history there. And they said, sure, here's all your running. So now I have a bovine prosthetic in there, and because all technology that's advanced, like giving up to the demo and all that, couldn't be better.
because there's nothing wrong with it. I don't have scoliosis or anything like that. So I have an experience, and a hell of an experience in Cleveland about some other things. Yeah, so it was, well, in the meantime, I'm saying
Thank you very much.
Little son,
I feel like I've been talking about it.